Hey guys, this is going to be our first video of the year. So the first thing we're going to talk about in this video is previewing the text. One of the things that separates successful students from students that are unsuccessful, especially in college, is the ability to read a textbook on their own and make sense of what they read, which is a big part of college. Professors will just assign readings and you have to do it on your own. So by the end of this video, our goals are that you will be able to understand why we preview the text, why we don't just jump right in and start reading, and you should be able to start previewing texts on your own in all your classes using the acronym THIS. So previewing isn't just for this class, you're going to use it for all of your classes. So first we're going to talk about why previewing a text is a good thing. We're going to talk about what the acronym THIS means. We're going to talk about what careful reading means and establishing a purpose for your reading, how to build your background knowledge and how that affects previewing a text, and then I'm going to show you a little bit what previewing looks like so you know how to go about doing it. First, we need to talk about why we even take our time to preview a text. Why don't we just jump right in? We're given a reading, we go home, we start reading. Why take time to preview it, to look at it beforehand? First, it reduces anxiety. When we preview a text and get an idea of what we're about to read, we have a better idea of what we need and where we're going. It's like a map. So this gives us a preview of where we're heading with the reading, what might be important, what might not be as important. And this helps ease the fear and anxiety. Previewing a text also helps us understand where we might have problems, where we might need to focus a little more, where we might need to buckle down. It also might show where we already know what the text is talking about, so we might be able to relax a little bit. Last, previewing the text helps get us into the reading and sets up exactly what we need to get from the text. It helps us establish that purpose. What do we need from this reading? So previewing the text can really be summed up in an acronym. The acronym for previewing the text is THIS. THIS stands for title, headings, introductory paragraph, summary paragraph. When you're previewing, you want to look at the title first. You want to look at the headings, maybe skim through, see if there's subheadings, things like that. Then you want to read the intro paragraph and the summary paragraph. We're going to talk about this in a little more detail in a second. So as you're previewing the text, there's some questions you want to ask yourself, some things you want to look at. Again, you're previewing the text. You're not getting in depth into reading yet. You're just kind of looking at it. So as you go through these steps, it's important that you're actively reading. You're constantly checking in with yourself about what you're previewing. Are there main ideas that are mentioned that you need to look out for? Is it a lengthy reading? Are there a lot of pages? If so, you want to break it up into different sessions. You don't want to sit down and read 30 pages at a time. You don't want to sit down and read 20, 15. You want to try and keep it to about 10 pages per reading session. So if you are assigned 20 pages, you need to break that up into 2 sessions. That doesn't mean just read the 10 pages and then come in the next day and say, oh, I only read 10 pages. You need to make time to read it twice. 10 pages one time, 10 pages another time. You want to look at how much you already know about the subject. If you already know a lot, the reading may be a little easier. If you don't know very much, you might need to take some more time, maybe do a quick web search. This will make the reading a little easier, get some of that background knowledge. You want to look at, as you're skimming through, what's interesting, what stands out, what would I like to know more about. Also, what's kind of boring. Generally, especially when you get to college reading, things get boring when we don't understand them. So if you make note of where things get boring, that might be a sign that that's a place where you really need to study a little more. You also want to look at, are there vocabulary words that seem important that you may not know, that you need to write down, that you need to look at. And then you want to look at, why are you reading this? What's your purpose? That will dictate how carefully you need to read it. So your purpose, the author's purpose, your background knowledge, all of that plays into how careful do you need to be as you're reading it. Not all readings are equal. If you're reading something for fun, if you're reading something to relax, you don't need to be as careful as if you're reading a text for class to study for a test or to write a paper or to get vital information. So again, as you're reading something, you want to think about your purpose. If it's relaxation, if it's escape, if you're going home and reading The Hunger Games, Twilight, Sports Illustrated, something like that, your purpose is relaxation, it's escape. It doesn't require all that much attention. If you're learning how to do something, it requires a little bit of attention, but you're usually motivated. If you're a cook and you're reading a new recipe, you want to cook that. So it's not as big an issue to read it. Most of your reading for college is going to be preparing for a test or exam, writing a paper, reviewing new material. This requires your maximum attention, everything you can muster, and you must be able to annotate properly, which we're going to cover in another video. So most of your reading for school is going to fall into one of these two categories: preparing for a test or exam or writing a paper. That means most of your readings for school are going to require your utmost attention. The more you know about a subject going in, your background knowledge, the easier the reading should be. However, where it says a little attention, that doesn't mean that you should blow the reading off. It doesn't mean you can just ignore it. It simply means that your attention does not need to be as high as with a topic you know very little about. For example, myself, an English major and an English teacher. If I were reading a text about the use of symbolism in native son, I still need attention. I don't need as much attention as if I were reading a text on the manifestations of childhood abuse and adult repeat offenders. That subject, psychology, I know very little about. That would need my maximum attention. I still need to pay attention to both, but one requires more attention than the other. That's something you need to consider as you're going into a text. How much do you already know about the topic? If you know a little or you don't really know anything, a lot of times that's what you're going to run into in college. You're taking psychology, you're taking AP environmental science, you're taking structural engineering, you're taking robotics. You're generally not going to go into those with a lot of background knowledge. So a lot of your reading, you're not going to have a lot of background knowledge. That means you need to give it your utmost attention. It also means your annotations need to be really well organized. You need to use graphic organizers to help you make sense of all this new information. And again, we'll talk about that in another video. So previewing a text, the acronym THIS. You look at your title, you look at your headings, you look at your intro paragraph, you look at your summary paragraph. So I'm going to show you what this looks like. I pulled a sample chapter from a psychology textbook. I'm just going to go through what it would look like if I were previewing the text. Alright, so we're going through the acronym THIS, showing you what previewing the text looks like. So first I start with the T in this, the title. So as I look at the title, I notice this chapter is going to talk about the methods of psychology, which I don't know much about, so that already tells me going in, I'm going to need to pay a little more attention. Next, I go through and look at the headings. That's the H in this. And I see that this textbook puts the headings and the subheadings right there on the first page, so I can see that I'm going to be reading about empiricism, the scientific method, the art of looking, observation, so on and so forth. So I know going in, I have that kind of map. Maybe using this as the columns for my Cornell notes. Now I kind of know what my left side might look like. Then I'm going to start skimming the pages. So as I'm looking at the headings, I'm making observations of other parts of the text. So for example, I notice important vocab on the sides of the pages here that maybe I need to pay attention to. Maybe some of these words I know, some I don't. Validity, reliability, those are words I know. Those don't stress me out. But electromyograph, that stresses me out a little bit. Never heard that word, so I'm going to want to pay attention to that word as I'm previewing the text here. I glance at the figures in the chart, see if there's something that might give me a main idea or important details. So this picture up here, figure 2.1, tells me that an electromyograph measures the electrical activity of the muscles in a person's face. So that helps me understand again the EMG. It's this electrical machine with the diodes to the face and things. It's going to measure those muscles. That'll help me. I also notice how many pages are in this reading. I need to break it up. As I go through, I can see there's 38 pages in this chapter. I'm not going to sit down and read 38 pages. I wouldn't remember most of what I read. So I need to break this up into chunks, into 10-page chunks. So I might start with just the first two sections, read those, come back to it later. I also notice each section ends with an in summary thing, so that's going to help me. I can look at that and see the main points, and then as I'm reading through, I know what I need to make sure I'm paying attention to. Again, previewing the text is all about helping the text make sense when we read it. It's not replacing reading. It's giving us that map. If you're heading somewhere new, it's nice to have a map. Even if you have a rough idea of where you're going, a map makes it easier. That's what previewing the text is going to do. So I've skimmed through, I've looked, I see some of the pictures, some of the vocabulary, things like that. So I'm going to go back now and I'm going to do the I part of this, which is the introductory paragraph. And again, I'm breaking this into sections. So I'm going to start with the first section, empiricism. I would read the first paragraph here, just the introductory paragraph. That would give me an idea of what's coming up. Then I'm going to go to the summary paragraph. Again, this textbook does a nice job for me. It just gives me this in summary box. So that tells me what the main points are. I'm going to read through that. It's important to remember that the summary box, and again, previewing the text, does not replace reading. This is what you do before you read. This will make the reading itself easier. So I read the intro paragraph, I've read the summary paragraph. Now I might go back and start reading in depth. So, summary. What did we do here? What did this video do? Helps us understand why we previewed the text. We preview text, it helps reduce anxiety. Some kids get pretty freaked out when a teacher says, hey, go home and read this chapter, go home and read this section. Previewing the text, following the steps you've been shown in this video, takes away that fear a little bit. It helps you kind of establish that map for reading. You may have a rough idea of where you're going, but a map always makes it easier. That's what previewing the text does. This video also showed you what previewing looks like. It doesn't take a lot of time, but it has a huge payoff. So you want to make sure when you're given reading in your classes, not just this class, but any class, that you're taking some time and you're previewing the text before you jump in. Alright, if you guys have any more questions, this is a process we're going to keep working with throughout the year. Feel free to email me, and I'll see you in class.